first story I want to talk about today, UMG removes its music from TikTok. So UMG, Universal Music Group, it's one of the 3 major music labels in the United States. And they announced on Tuesday in an open letter that it was going to pull all of its music from TikTok. This open letter, very, very, I don't want to use the word sassy, but very pointed. Like, it was very scathing. And its title was, quote, "Why We Must Call Timeout on TikTok," end quote. And they basically cited 3 key issues. It kind of feels like the Declaration of Independence, where it's like, we list these reasons as to why, we're doing this. So the first kind of major reason is issues of royalties, right? Which is the most obvious. So according to the Wrap, UMG claims that they only get, quote, "a fraction of the rate that similarly situated major social platforms pay," end quote. Saying that they only make about 1% of their total revenue from TikTok. So they're looking for better revenue sharing agreements that TikTok, I guess, is not willing to budge on. Another issue that UMG cites is AI, right? The use of artificial intelligence. UMG accuses TikTok here of, quote, "allowing the platform to be flooded with AI-generated recordings," end quote. And not only is it flooded, but it's like a self-fulfilling system where people see this AI-generated content and then want to make their own. Right, and it just kind of fuels this never-ending, this proliferation of interest and access in such recordings. I think TikTok even has like a filter or a function where you can create, like covers of songs. It's your voice, but it's right. And UMG calls, this kind of open proliferation of these kinds of this kind of content. UMG calls this, quote, "nothing short of sponsoring artist replacement by AI," end quote. So, they want to obviously protect the brand and the sanctity of like having actual musical artists. So that's another issue that they cite. And then the third and last issue that they cite is online safety for users, right? So this isn't even touching on the musician specifically, but just in the general sense of our music is going to be on a platform where there's hate speech and bullying and abuse and all this stuff. And TikTok, according to them, has really offered no meaningful solutions, end quote. I can't remember if this is from the actual open letter or if someone else had made this comment, but someone compared to like whack-a-mole, right? And that's a lot of the social media strategy. These social media company strategies dealing with, content that they don't want on their platforms is basically just it's like you for every person that you remove, 5 more people pop up in their place, right? And UMG basically they claim that they tried to resolve these issues with TikTok. So this is not just coming out of nowhere, right? And they said that concerns were met, quote, "first with indifference and then with intimidation," end quote. Furthermore, they wrote, here's like a little passage from the open letter. They said, quote, "TikTok attempted to bully us into accepting a deal worth less than the previous deal, far less than fair market value, and not reflective of their exponential growth by selectively removing the music of certain of our developing artists while keeping on the platform our audience-driving global stars," end quote. So it seems like, according to UMG, TikTok, basically tried to strong-arm them, being like, okay, like we're gonna basically we'll take off some of your artists and we'll just keep the ones that make us a bunch of money, right? So in this open letter, UMG threatens to pull all of their stuff off of TikTok by January 31st, which, if you've noticed, was last week, right? So, for a couple days, this was like, are they playing chicken? Like, what's going to happen? And nothing ended up happening in terms of a deal. And they basically made good on their threat on February 1st. Videos featuring songs under UMG were either removed or muted, and if you were to go on now and try to use one of these songs, I think if you search the song, it'll say like removed or unavailable due to copyright, right? So who's covered by UMG, right? So like, what is this going to affect? So again, because we live in the United States and everything is a monopoly and capitalism's awful, yes, I said it, that UMG covers a lot of people. And I have a little select list here, and this is, including but not limited to. So people that are covered by UMG include Taylor Swift. I think we could just stop there. Considering that Taylor Swift is probably the biggest star alive today. Last night, I think she just won her 4th album of the year at the Grammys and like has set the record for that amount. So that's obviously a big loss. Other people include, but are not limited to, Drake, Olivia Rodrigo, Kendrick Lamar, Billie Eilish, Ariana Grande, Adele, Harry Styles, The Weeknd, Bob Dylan, Justin Bieber, Coldplay, Elton John, Sting, SZA, U2, Post Malone, BTS, Ice Spice, Nicki Minaj, Bad Bunny, Rosalia, Lady Gaga, Rihanna, Alicia Keys, Pearl Jam, and The Beatles. A very notable group of music that is no longer available on TikTok. And a notable one is you also have a song that's been removed now of Sophie Ellis-Bextor's 2001 hit "Murder on the Dance Floor." And the Independent notes that, this is one of the most popular songs on TikTok right now thanks to its use at the end of Saltburn very effectively. So what does TikTok have to say about this? TikTok kind of wrote a counter open letter, or at least it made a public statement saying, quote, I have a little kind of blurb here. Quote, it's sad and disappointing that Universal Music Group has put their own greed above the interests of their artists and songwriters. Despite Universal's false narrative and rhetoric, the fact is that they have chosen to walk away from the powerful support of a platform with well over 1 billion users that serves as a free promotional and discovery vehicle for their talent. TikTok has been able to reach artist-first agreements with every other label and publisher. Clearly, Universal's self-serving actions, it's very scathing, this war of words. Clearly, Universal's self-serving actions are not in the best interests of artists, songwriters, or fans, end quote. So, on one hand, I'm not trying to both sides this, but I see both sides, right? And ultimately, I can only care so much because these are two giant, media conglomerates, multinational companies fighting, right? And at some point I can't really care, right? But let's kind of see. So like, what do both stand to lose here, right? So TikTok, this is a big loss for TikTok if this ends up becoming permanent, which I'm sure it won't be. But TikTok has really diversified, but at its core, TikTok is a music sharing company, right? Has lots of content. Including this video, if you're watching this on TikTok, because I plan on breaking them all up, and putting them on TikTok. But, if you remember, this TikTok originally started as a different app called Musical.ly, right? Musical.ly, where people could record them lip syncing to songs and stuff. And, eventually I think that got bought out and kind of got transformed into what TikTok now is, right? And it's just been an integral part of its success from the beginning. And even today, even if it's not music, the use of audio is crucial, right? People using samples and like lip syncing to funny quotes from movies or commercials or just from pop culture. And music, again, is a huge part of that. So, TikTok really stands to lose a big, just both money, but also just the image of, okay, well, I'm going to be limited in terms of what, creators are limited in terms of what content they can use and remix and, what they can do to entertain their fans, right? But on the flip side, here's what UMG has to lose is that TikTok's really important for marketing your music, especially for, up-and-coming musical artists, right? Like people get discovered. I could be mistaken. I feel like Lil Nas X was kind of, Old Town Road and all of that, like I think TikTok played a huge role in that. And then also old songs get new life, right? So we mentioned that song from Saltburn. I think, what was it? Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush. Like I know that was used in Stranger Things, but people were using that very much, very excessively on TikTok around that time. And that equals revenue for those labels and those artists, right? At the end of the day, this is ultimately a bargaining tactic, right? It's the open letter format gives the public the chance to get angry about it, right? And I think UMG is hoping to shame TikTok into settling on better terms, right? This is not unprecedented. Something similar happened, according to the New York Times. They note that, something like this happened back in 2008. Warner Music Group and YouTube had this like 9-month stare down essentially, over the copyright of their music being all over their website. And then ultimately it got resolved because they agreed to share in the ad revenue. Whereas this situation, they are already sharing in revenue, but not at a level that UMG feels is appropriate. And reactions are mixed, right? So some songwriters think it's time for a change, and that UMG is holding TikTok accountable and fighting for them. But then others think that UMG is really only doing this for themselves. And I think that is true, but songwriters will benefit by UMG being self-interested because in this case, their interests are aligned, right? And aside from just the songwriters and the labels, again, TikTok users, are going to be affected. People who this is their bread and butter, utilizing popular music. I think the New York Times noted a user, John Casterlin, has had about 10% of his videos muted, right? So that's, if this is like your source of income or one of your sources of income, that's a huge dip, right? That's a huge impact financially. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on this story, but it's going to be interesting to see what terms eventually end up getting settled, because they will absolutely settle in some capacity. It's just a matter of when and what those terms will be.